Hi everyone, welcome to the viaGood podcast. We are so delighted to have you guys watching over on YouTube, and also to our audio listeners on Spotify or whatever podcast service you use. So today we will be having our first ever podcast episode, as I mentioned, and these podcasts will be all about how individuals can take action against the world's greatest challenges. And we will have a selection of guests. As I mentioned, we'll have individuals who will be telling their personal stories about how they make a difference in the world. We will also have guests who are from NGOs who sort of make a difference in their local communities, and also we will have guests from decision makers who are guests will also join us. So we're really hoping that this podcast will be a source of inspiration for you in how to take action against the world's greatest challenges. We will also be speaking a lot about the UN Sustainable Development Goals during this podcast because we really think it's an effective framework for making change. So you'll hear a lot about the SDGs, or the Sustainable Development Goals. But before I get started, I will describe a bit about us as viaGood. So we are a US-Czech startup who have created a mobile app designed to take action against the world's greatest challenges. And these challenges can be anything from fighting climate change to protecting endangered animals and supporting women and girls, or providing clean drinking water for people who need it the most. And it's a mobile app available on the Apple Store right now. So if you want to make a change in your world, but you're not sure exactly how, viaGood could be a good option. So now on to the podcast. I'm delighted to have as our first guest the newest member of the viaGood team. Her name is Darina Šeděnková, and this episode will be all about how the power of individual action can really make an impact in our world. And she has some incredible stories and sources of inspiration to share with you guys. So I'm delighted to introduce Darina. So hello, Darina. How are you doing today?
Hello, everyone. I'm good. Thank you. And thank you for the invitation.
A complete honor. Thank you for agreeing to be on our podcast as our first guest. That's quite brave. So to get kicked off, tell me a bit about yourself. What brought you to viaGood? You can start as far back as you like, really. Like what made you want to be a change in the world, a force for change in the world?
Well, all my life, I was a professional tennis player. So sports defines me a lot, but these days I'm more into saving the planet. So that is why I joined the viaGood team. And I don't know, we must go I think far back to know where it all started, because I think it's because of the way my dad and mom raised me when I was a child. So my dad always was telling me, to behave nice in the nature and to be kind to all the animals and to be nice with them. So for example, when we were in the forest, he was like, shh, don't talk loud because we can scare the animals and it's their home, so we can't be loud. So it was I think, and this is why I have really deep connection with the nature and with the animals, with all the animals. And I think this is even when I played tennis the whole life and I did all the sports. So I think this was all the time with me, deep inside. Yeah.
Nice. And I think a lot of people can connect to the idea of being in nature as a child, but often I think growing up, particularly when we grew up, which was sort of the beginning of mobile phones and internet, it's quite easy to disconnect. So was there a period in your life where you disconnected from nature in a way of, as I say, through growing up, maybe as a teenager, and did you find your way back to nature, or have you consistently been at one and acknowledging of nature?
Well, I think I can say I'm very happy that I'm from the generation when the child, we were all the time out. Yeah, we were playing outside. We were in the nature. We were in forest, like everywhere. So I think I'm happy for this. And I know. Then I started to play tennis, and it was a lot about only tennis, all my childhood and the growing up, and everything. So I didn't care that much about the nature and animals, because it was like, professional sports is all about just the sport. But after I stopped playing professional, I was thinking about, well, it was many years ago, I wanted to become a vegetarian because of the animals. But it was the time I was still playing professional, and there were people around me, like coaches and so on, who was saying, oh, come on, you need a power and it's not a good idea, and this kind of,
I can imagine, definitely.
So yeah. So I was not strong enough to do it in that time. But after many years after that, I was like, okay, I realized, okay, now maybe it's the time I grew up and made my own decisions. So I became vegetarian like 7 years ago, maybe it's 8 already. It's like so fast.
Yeah.
And I was one vegetarian, then I became vegan. And so, and I'm very happy for this decision. So it's like 6 years ago, I think.
Yeah. And would you say then veganism was a real turning point for you in terms of really acknowledging what's happening to our environment? Because I think that's quite a common thing. People sometimes go vegan for health reasons or for reasons completely disconnected from the planet and from the environment. And then exactly. It's the pivotal point where they start thinking, actually, this is better for the planet. And what else is good for the planet? Would you say that's something similar that happened to you?
Yeah, exactly. Because when I became vegan because of the ethical reasons mostly, but then I started to meet like another people who are vegetarians or vegans. I was attending some events, where I meet these people, and like they were talking about the ecology, about the planet, and so on. I was like, okay. So I did my research. I was like, okay, so I'm actually helping the planet.
Yeah.
Because I'm vegan. I was like, that's pretty cool. But the little bit worse thing was that I realized that there is really something bad going on with our planet, with how we treat our planet and the animals, and how many people need the help and so on. So yeah, this was it.
It's really interesting because I had a very similar journey. I am not vegan, but I definitely consume minimal amounts of meat. But for the same reason as you did at the beginning, it was mostly for health. I was really concerned about what was in the meat. And then I realized, well, actually, eating less meat can help world hunger in many ways. There's a lot of people are saying that we have enough food on the planet, but people aren't getting fed because, a lot of it is going towards animals and livestock, and all of these other issues that were connected to what you choose to eat, I think really triggered a care about the environment with me as well. So that's interesting. So yes, eating less meat is definitely one way that we can all make a difference. But what else would you say, what does doing better and doing good look like to you? And how can people do more to protect our planet, aside from eating less meat?
Well, I think it's individual on every one of us. Like for me, doing more means like really be vegan, like care about the waste, plastic waste mostly, and I know inspire the people around you, maybe, because when I started when I became vegan and I started to realize all the stuff happening to the planet and animals as well, I started to share it on my Instagram stories, and Facebook and everywhere. And I inspired a few people. They became vegan or vegetarian because of this animal agriculture, And I think it's like some the waves, in the water, like you throw a rock into the water and it does the waves,
the ripple effect. So, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it sounds like this. And my family, it's like my brother. It's, I don't know, meet like once in a 2 weeks or so on, because we were talking a lot about this. And yes, I think it's about the inspiring, and it's like individual, like doing more. Like for me, it meant to join your team, like viaGood team. It was like, okay, now I do more than before. But for example, for my partner, it means to eat less meat. Yeah, so this is for him, like, okay, do more, now I do more. So I think it's individual.
I really like that answer. It's a lot about not trying to do everything perfectly, but just trying to do something is really important. And that's really what we stand by at viaGood. It's not easy to do good, but there are ways you can make it easier for yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And you should start with yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah, of course, first. Yeah.
I completely agree. And within your background, so I know you have many hats. You do many different things. You work with our sort of Czech PR here at viaGood, but you do many other things. And I want to hear a bit more about your professional tennis career, what happened there, and what was this sort of pivotal point? Because you said once you stopped being professional, you started making your own decisions. So I'd really love to hear more about that whole journey.
Oh, well, so tennis is like a huge part of my life. I raced on a tennis court. So yeah, I love tennis. I still love it, and I still teach tennis, some hours, and it's really in my heart and always will be. And I love it. I love the way how I was raised by tennis, and I wouldn't change anything on my life. Yeah, I started when I was 7. And then, I don't know, I was pretty sure, like when I was young, I was really sure I want to win all the Grand Slams, and be number 1 in the world. I was really dedicated. And yeah, I had really supportive parents, which was very important for me. And yeah, it was not easy, but I loved the way tennis raised me.
Wonderful. Yeah. And were you in competitions? Like, did you compete? You said you were a professional. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, well, I was traveling around the world. My ranking on WTA was 380 in the singles and 250 in the doubles. Yeah. Wow. So
what does that mean for someone who doesn't watch tennis like myself?
Oh, well, I think like for me, in my point of view, I could do better.
I think that's always the way.
But a lot of people say, "Wow, that's really cool." Yeah, so I didn't play any Grand Slam, but I was close to it, and I was a lot of time. Sadly, I was injured, so I had problems with my knee, few operations, and yeah, that's how it goes.
So is that really the turning point? You were injured, so you weren't able to do tennis anymore, and what sort of happened?
Yeah, the first time I got injured, I was 17, and I had to have operation on my knee, the first one. Second one was when I was 23. Yeah, and then I came back. I started to play, but there was something bad happening with my Achilles. Yeah, and then it was like it was not good. Yeah, so I decided to quit, but I stayed with tennis, and I was a professional tennis coach. So yeah, because I couldn't imagine life without tennis.
Wonderful. And it obviously gave you, well, not so wonderful, but wonderful that you had that experience and that it gave you the ability to still do what you love, but also do other things like Repairably, which I'd love to hear more about as well.
Well, Repairably, it's a Slovak non-profit organizations, and I am a team of Repairably, and it's kind of story as well. Because I am still a professional tennis coach, but there was something, when I realized all the stuff happening with the planet, animals, people as well, was like still like pushing me more and more, like to do something more, than just to share the stories on Instagram or whatever. I was like, come on, and the more I was thinking about it, the more it was pushing me, and like it was like coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences. I heard one podcast, and there was a Repairably CEO, Daniela Laluhova, and she was talking about Repairably and how they certify products which are easy repairable because they want to avoid the waste, and I was like, oh, this makes sense to me, like a lot of sense. So I checked their websites, and there was written like, join our team. So I sent them email, then we had a call and so on. And okay, so I'm the team, the member on Repairably.
Wonderful.
Yeah, because it makes sense to me. Yeah, but it was not easy because we are volunteers. All of us are volunteers, so we have to do it in our free time, and I had still my job, and I had to do free time. So, but it was not so big impact I wanted to do. So I was like, I need to change something, and I just decided to find a job like where I can get paid, that I can do it much more than my free time, because I still need to pay some bills,
Of course.
Yeah, so I decided to find a job, and yeah, it was a big decision for me, and because there were people, who were telling like, oh, come on, you are a tennis coach and you are really good and you have really good career, and so like really think of it once again. I was like, oh no, I really want to do it, so I will do it. Yeah, so I did it. I did my first CV ever in my life. And I started to contact the organizations. Yeah, and that's how I found viaGood.
That's such an interesting story, because I think a lot of people don't know how to start making an impact or how to make a change. We've sort of discussed some ways, such as, changing your diet, eating less meat, becoming vegan, vegetarian, and so on. But I think that something in our generation and younger, so millennials and Generation Z or Gen Z, there is a real sort of desire to work in a way that aligns with how you want the world to be. And I think that's something that's really changed from older generations, where a job was something only to really pay your bills, or you could be passionate about it, but it wasn't really something that you thought you were doing in order to have a positive impact. And I think that's quite a new way of thinking about working, and something that I'm very motivated by as well. So for what advice would you give to our listeners who maybe are not working in a way that aligns with what they want to achieve in the world, be it social impact, fighting climate change? What advice would you give them to sort of get started? Because I think you're a really good example of someone who hasn't worked in that space before, and you really changed the way that you were operating. You stopped playing tennis, or not stopped playing, but you moved from tennis, which is not necessarily impact driven, to two different impact driven jobs. So what advice would you give to people?
Well, I think the most important at the beginning is that they need to know what they want to do. Yeah, because when I was coaching tennis like full time, I was like, there were like few years already where I was like thinking that I want to do maybe anything else, with the impact and so on, but I didn't know exactly what. So it was a few years I was thinking about it, and what and how, like no experiences, in the field and so on. But then I found it with the Repairably idea, and I was like, oh, this is it. Yeah, and from since that time I knew for sure what I wanted to do. So I think this is the first step, to know what you want to do, like exactly. Because I believe then if you know it and you set your mind, then I believe it comes to you.
Definitely, I agree with that.
Yeah, and then to have the courage to change it. Yeah, even if you have like shining career and so on, but you don't see the meaning, in what you do. So just change it. Don't sit in the office and just to get paid, but do something what makes sense to you and what you believe in.
I completely agree with that. And I think there is like volunteering is one way to sort of discover what you like to do. But it is obviously quite a place of privilege that you have to have in order to volunteer, which I think is sometimes what people struggle with, maybe. But doing things, like at the end of the day when you finished work, for example, and trying to really fit any change that you can make around your day, I think is one way to do it. But also really, as I said, I think within our generation now, there are many jobs and many companies that are trying to make a difference and to work towards the Sustainable Development Goals, which I think is really exciting. So we're at a real, as much as the world is, if you look at it in a certain way, it can be seen to be a little bit depressing. There are many, many different groups and people and companies and charities that are trying to make a real difference. And I think we can all sort of jump on board with that. My next question is a difficult one. It's kind of about the moral dilemmas that you might find yourself in as an activist or someone who's trying to make a change. For example, there have been many situations in my own life where I know that I'm passionate about changing the world and about trying to reduce my impact as much as possible, but it's not always easy to do. For example, I was on holiday once in a place where if you're not from that area, you shouldn't drink the water from there. And I was in a really hot country where it was over 40 degrees and I was there for 2 weeks. So I only drank bottled water out of plastic. And also I was in a country where the recycling facilities were really poor. So I knew that all of that waste would be going to landfill, but at the same time, you have to survive. So I'm sure there are many other examples, such as a family member getting married in a faraway place, but you also want to reduce the amount of time that you spend flying. But you want to be there and support your family, but also you don't want to fly. And there are many sort of ways that this sort of contradiction happens. So do you have any advice for people who maybe are a bit hard on themselves on, wanting to make a real difference, but also in reality, the way that the modern world is set up, it's quite difficult to feel like you're doing a good thing, even if you have the best intentions?
Well, I think that people can be hard on them, but as long as they feel okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, about the flying to the wedding, as you mentioned, if you feel okay that you will fly there because you love your friends, and so on, or family members, and you fly once in 5 years or 10. So I think it's okay if it's okay with you. But if you don't feel it's okay, if you feel like, no, I don't want to go there, and you go there only because they have problem with it, so I think you should not do it. For example, if I can say one story from my life, which I remember now, there was a birthday party with one little girl I trained with. She was 6 years old and she invited me. So I came there and she was running to me and screaming, "Hey, Darina is here. Come on, I waited for you with the cake. I want to eat it with you." Wow. But of course, yeah, but I was like, all right, but there is going to be meat, milk and eggs and so on, and it's for sure not vegan. But come on, I couldn't ruin her birthday party, her day. Yes, was okay. So I got a piece of the cake and I ate it with her, because she was happy and it was absolutely okay. So I was okay with this situation, yeah. But if someone comes to me and say, "Oh, do you want this?" and it's like milk chocolate or whatever, I say, "Oh no, thank you," yeah, because it's absolutely okay. So I think this is it. As long as you feel okay, then you know how you feel, and you should listen,
Definitely.
to this.
I think that's a really powerful way of looking at it, and something that I think we should all do more, because I don't think being a perfect activist or a perfect person to make change exists. But as long as every time you make a decision, you try your best to make the best decision in that moment, I think then you're doing a great job.
Yeah, like I mean at the beginning I was very strict. It was like really, I was very strict, but it was really not easy, and it was not easy with my partner, and you know, so I relax a little bit. Relax. It's just, and I'm okay. I feel good, and yeah, I think, yeah, it's okay.
I think I think mental health and mental well-being is really connected to family and other people. And I think we should always do what's right for the planet, but we also need to do what's right for our mental health and for our sanity as well. So I really like your idea of staying true to yourself and asking yourself, does this feel good when making a decision? I think that's a good way to look at it. And that leads me really nicely to another question I wanted to ask about the Sustainable Development Goals. So in case you don't know, for our listeners, the Sustainable Development Goals are sort of like a global action plan that most countries have agreed to achieving by 2030. And they exist to try and end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that all people are able to enjoy peace and prosperity. And as I mentioned, they're kind of like a roadmap or a framework or an action plan, whatever you want to call it, to achieve that. And I really like the idea of having measurable goals. For example, from the SDGs, there is the goal of, as I mentioned, ending poverty, but also of providing global health for all people, also for providing education for everyone. So I feel like having a set of goals like that can be quite helpful, because if you are trying to work towards something that is tangible, it makes it much easier to sort of be consistent in making a change, be it in your professional life or in your personal life. So I wanted to ask you, Darina, in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, what do you think needs to happen, not necessarily on the individual level, but in general? So with governments, with schools, with communities, in order to make the goals happen. And for our listeners, I will leave a link to the Sustainable Development Goals in the show notes to this episode, or in the sort of YouTube summary of the episode.
Well, okay, if I can start on the individual level, I think like people need to believe that they can people need to believe that they can help on the individual levels. Because like in these times I hear a lot, like the people say, okay, why I should eat less meat when all of the other people eat meat every day. I can't make a change on my individual level. So I think this needs to be changed, that they need to believe that they can make a change and they can help on the individual levels. Definitely. That's what viaGood does, application.
We will chat more about it.
It's very easy to make a change there. So this is individual levels. Schools. I think they need to educate. Like I don't know if I'm the right person to tell what schools needs to do, but I think they should educate like children more about the nature and the animals and the connection between the nature and us. You know, and government politics. This is really hard.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe if there will be big change if they start to support a little bit more the plant-based diet. I think instead of instead of meat and milk industry, because they are supporting it very much with the money, I think. Yeah, and the politics, they should start to care about our planet more than about the money, I think.
People and planet before profit. I agree.
Yes, exactly. So, and that is like, that's it, I think. But it's not easy.
It's not, but I think, as you mentioned, that is why viaGood exists and why I'm part of the project, because I really like the idea of, change has to happen at many different levels. And we've kind of touched on it during this podcast, but as well as making individual life changes, we also need to make whole community changes and whole country and international changes. So viaGood really is a incredible tool to make that happen, because as well as providing all of our users with daily tips to incorporate into their own lives, we have the option for users to donate to NGOs or non-profit organizations or charities who are doing incredible work that need to be funded. And there's an option to sort of donate micro donations as little as $10 to contribute to their work. We also have the ability for users to sign petitions within the app, and we have partnered with Care2, which are a fantastic petition site, because change can only happen really at the decision-making level as well. We can all make as many changes individually as possible, but if the governments and people who are running our countries aren't sort of holding us accountable or making it as easy as possible to make those good decisions, they're not going to happen. So we really think that petition level change, well, petition as a method of change, is really, really powerful. And we also, within the viaGood app, are passionate about providing up-to-date and critical information about key challenges, because knowledge is power, and without understanding problems fully, such as climate change, for example, we're unable to take adequate action. So we have events which are shown in the event in the app even, that are sort of presented by experts in the field, so you can stay informed and stay up to date with all of the latest developments happening in those areas. So yes, without sounding too much like an ad, if you want to make an impact in the world and you don't know how to, then really consider downloading the viaGood app, because it really is a one-stop shop for making change. Thank you, Darina. I think we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us and for being our first guest. Do you have any final words for our listeners to help uplift them and inspire them throughout the rest of their day?
Well, maybe just do what you love and do what you think is right. Be kind. Yeah, and I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I enjoyed
so much. And if you are listening to this podcast, please leave us a comment. If you're watching it even on YouTube, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And do follow viaGood on social media, because we have lots of fun over there, and we try to keep our listeners and viewers inspired. So for more tips on how to make a change, please head to our social media platforms. Thank you, Darina. Have a good rest of your day ahead, and we will speak again, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.
I will. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.